All right, here with Tom, we are talking about Scott McTominay. How's it going?
Yeah, good, thank you. How about you?
All good. Yeah. Enjoying a little bit of rain in the summer because it never rains in Seattle. So,
The Manchester of America. And it's also been raining here as well in the UK. Like some days have been really, really, truly miserable. To say it's like mid-August. But then I think we're in for a heat wave maybe next week or something. So
there you go. Weather chat. That's what people come for. Yeah. Seattle is the Manchester of the Pacific Northwest. It's got a kind of great music scene and beer and rain and all of that. Doesn't look anything like it, though. So we're going to talk about Scott McTominay today because there's a lot of transfer activity, perhaps with him, or maybe he's staying. Who knows? So
yeah, or hinging on him as well, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting, fun and games. So Laurie Whitwell in The Athletic did quite a bit of detailed reporting on him. Fulham made 3 bids, 20, 25 and 30 million, met United's valuation, and it appears Scott McTominay turned them down, waiting for a better offer. And then a Napoli delegation were apparently in the UK to negotiate. I'm not sure whether they'd have any money, to be honest, but and maybe he's just going to stay because Ten Hag specifically said he'd like him to stay. So how do we feel about Scott and what his value could be in staying or going?
He's had some unbelievable moments for United. Like that goal against City, I think will always live long in our lives.
The long range effort. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just an explosion of euphoria when he scored that. It was amazing. And obviously last season, like picking up 10 goals, like important goals, like he scored against Liverpool, he scored against Coventry in the semi-final,
Brentford,
Chelsea as well, Brentford. Yeah, like there's been some amazing moments because of his Frank Lampard-esque ability to just arrive in the box at the right time. However, there's just so many limitations to his game, and that's why he has to go, because he's great when you need a goal, but like, and he's a good squad player. He will obviously give his all, and the backbone of the United teams under Fergie were built on players like Scott McTominay. But when we're living in a PSR world and when we're living in a world where our recruitment has been so bad for so many years and we've got an inflated squad, a bloated squad, a squad which hasn't got enough quality in it, and especially a midfield that hasn't got enough quality in it, McTominay, who has potentially one of the best best players that we can sell for a lot of money, and obviously with the amortization thing, with him being an academy player, it just makes perfect sense for him to go. Like if you were running this football team on Football Manager, you'd be like, yeah, get him out the door, not thinking like from an emotional perspective or a sentimental perspective. Because like I said, there has been great moments. He's an academy player. He gives his all every time he plays. And like, I remember that Brentford goal because he'd been really linked to, I think, West Ham that summer, the summer last gone. And it looked like he was going. There was a real outpouring of emotion when he scored that Brentford goal, because it was only a few weeks, I think, after the transfer window closed. It was like, wow, yeah, this is why I'm staying at Man United. This is what I kind of dreamed of as a kid, and that's always brilliant. But like, if we want to progress, I think we need to get rid of him and bring in players who are better quality.
Yeah,
I mean, really brutal about it, and because it is brutal.
It is brutal. I mean, it's also true, of course. Yeah. I mean, I think if you were talking about a championship winning side, not the championship, but a Premier League title winning side or close to it, then Scott doesn't really play a part. That said, we're not there yet, so timing is kind of interesting. And you know, you're right. If it wasn't for the PSR benefit, and look, it's not some magic trick that suddenly you get more money. It's just an accounting issue where you can reap the benefit on your accounts immediately. And so, in theory, a £30 million sale of Scott McTominay doesn't change the cash flow that much, because it will be like the money will be apportioned over 5 years by the buying club, but in accounting terms, in PSR terms, we take it all straight away, which means, in theory, £150 million worth of spending. Now, you still have to sell another player for 30 million next year to keep doing that, right? So it's not a magic money tree, but it's obviously, clubs are thinking kind of short term and doing this kind of thing. And yes, he's a player in a good Manchester United side that won't be starting. And to be honest, I don't want him starting very often. Now, as a player who's in the squad, who can take some of the, let's say, less glamorous Europa League ties, because there's going to be quite a few, or cup ties, and come off the bench to maybe grab a goal when we're desperate, fine. The thing is, and the reason why he scored 10 goals last season, is United were desperate a lot. And, that was a kind of sign, I think, of a pretty poor side, or obviously finished 8th in the Premier League. So yeah, I mean, on balance, like if it was Fergie time, Fergie era, and we weren't worrying about PSR, I don't think Fergie would sell a player like Scott McTominay at all because of the character. I don't know whether you saw that interview with Andrew Postecoglou the other day, where he said, I'll take a player who's got a great character over a better quality player any day. And that's kind of Scott, really. Great character, trains hard. He comes up with big moments, clutch moments. But yeah, his passing range is not very good. He's sort of, it took many years, didn't it, to work out the thing he is good at, which is those late runs into the box and his finishing. Which has a real value to a certain team.
It does, but when you're a centre midfielder, especially at Man United, and a team that wants to control things, or obviously a team that was supposed to play in transition last year, he can't really progress the ball that well because he's not technically good enough and he's not great at striding with it. He can do if there's space, but he's not really going to beat a man. And technically, he's not good enough to control a game. I don't think tactically he's good enough to control a game either. Like his feet are kind of just a little bit too hard. He doesn't have them super soft feet. He's not great at turning like back to goal. If you're giving him the ball, receiving in a pivot, he's not good enough. He's not good enough defensively either. Like he's not tactically great at playing centre midfield. He's like a number 10 almost. He's like a luxury player almost, because he's good in the box, but he doesn't give you anything else on the field really. He's fine at passing. It's not like he's a League Two player. It's not like he looks like a Sunday League player every time he plays, but he's just for the level of Man United, he's not good enough to play centre midfield. There's a few things I just mentioned then, but there's so many things that just make him not good enough. And also the game just passes him by. Like,
yeah. Or he deliberately gets out of the way. There was an accusation for many years that he'd hide in the passing shadow, right? So he wouldn't have to have the ball, or just didn't know where to stand on the pitch in order to get the ball more often. He was making 20 or 30 passes a game rather than 50, 60 or 80.
Which is really bad. And I think that's maybe what puts teams off him, and maybe why the value of someone like Fulham have only made 20 million and there's no one been kind of desperate out there to sign him, because I don't really know where he fits, like for any club. Like I say, if he's going to replace Souček at West Ham, like that's kind of the player he is almost, but that's you wouldn't want to spend 30 million on that. And I don't think
the goals are worth it. Right, to someone like Fulham, to guarantee you don't get relegated, or to move up from 12th to 7th or 8th, or maybe even push for a European place, then the goals.
But at what cost do the goals come? I think that's the issue, because
control.
The control and you say that he pops away with 10 goals like he did last season, but how many goals are we conceding because of him, because of his defensive lapses? How many goals are we not scoring because he's not involved in the play enough, and we're playing almost with 10 men in attack? Like that's what Scott McTominay is, and that's why you can't really point to just he scored this many goals, he got this many assists. Like great moments, like I said at the start of the show, but that's not enough.
I mean, I think that point about how many goals would United have scored if he wasn't playing so often is it's very true. If United had more control, maybe we don't score 58 goals last season. Or was it 57? I can't remember. It's dreadful amount. Yeah. And I think it's very true. But for a certain kind of club and team, he might well make sense. Now, the other club are reportedly super interested in Napoli. Antonio Conte is the manager there. They won a Serie A couple of years ago. Amazing to watch that Napoli side. They were 10th last season. They've gone through managers now, and Antonio Conte, a few managers, I should say. And Antonio Conte is in charge. And it's probably his biggest ever challenge, honestly. The likelihood of Osimhen going and Kvaradona may even leave as well. So there's a big turnover. I mean, if I was picking a club that I thought would be an obvious fit for Scott McTominay, it wouldn't necessarily be Napoli. I might be going, West Ham or Everton or Fulham or something, maybe not Aston Villa these days, but yeah, I mean, apparently as part of at least so says Whitwell, part of the thinking on McTominay's part in turning down Fulham was that he was waiting for a better opportunity.
I just don't know. I don't think he is better than Fulham. I think if Napoli is better than Fulham, which I think it is. I mean, it was at least 2 or 3 years ago, and they have got some really like you say, top quality players, but they all want to leave mostly. I mean, Lobotka's still there doing bits at the bottom of the midfield, a really quality player, and obviously Kvaratskhelia and Osimhen and a lot of other good players. But then is Conte past it? I think they lost their first game of the season. I'd obviously, if I was McTominay, I'd jump at the chance of moving to Napoli. I don't see them having the money. I also just don't see him succeeding there either, to be honest. But if he's thinking for a better offer,
they'll paint murals on the walls.
Yeah.
If he's great. I mean, great city, by the way. So.
Super fun and super amazing stadium, super amazing atmosphere. In terms of pure enjoyment, going to somewhere like Napoli, if they're winning, I mean, it won't be particularly great if they're losing, would be amazing. And I would jump at the chance of going there. But I'd also jump at the chance of going to Fulham because there's maybe I think he's rating himself too highly if he thinks he's better than that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, he's been at a club and played a role over many, many years with United. Even though it's been in the doldrum years, guaranteed European football most of the time. So he's probably thinking that. Why would he, with Fulham, be looking at mid-table and be happy with that? And they've been a bit of a yo-yo club over the years. So although living in West London, playing at the Craven Cottage and whatever may appeal in many ways. I can understand why he may think that's too big a step down, even if, because he's professional footballer. He's not going to look at himself and go, yeah, I'm a bit crap, really.
Yeah.
So, there's a certain level of confidence and ego required, I think, in this profession.
And I guess it's kind of what he wants as well. We obviously saw with Fred last summer that he just didn't want to be a squad player. And he would rather move to someone like Fenerbahce to play week in, week out, rather than play 60% of the games for United and maybe start 40% of them. If McTominay's happy of just being a squad player, then rather than be a starter for Fulham, then you can understand that, especially as it's your boyhood club, the club you've been at since such a young lad.
He's not on massive wages, which is another consideration because that makes him easier to sell. So United have had a lot of problems with players on giant wages and not being able to get them off the books. And you always have to, because in a world of PSR and squad cost rule with UEFA, you have to think about the whole package, not just the So bigger wages means lower fee, basically. And he is commanding a £30 million fee, even if we might question whether that's right or not, because he's on relatively low wages at United, not being an outsider. So he's amongst the bottom sort of quartile of players in terms of wages. Whereas some players who came in later or somehow conned Ed Woodward into giving them a contract are on much, much bigger wages. And there are problems for you. I mean, Jadon Sancho is a massive problem. They take a £30-40 million fee for him, and he's a much better player than that. Or in theory, he's a much better player than that, but he's on massive wages. So that becomes a huge risk, especially when you see what's happened to him in the last couple of years. Even Victor Lindelof, I think, is on such big wages, it makes him difficult to move on. You see this with Arsenal and Eddie Nketiah, who's like been completely mediocre his entire career, but he's on more than 100 grand a week. And so, the proposed move to Forest may not happen because he'd be their best paid player. And there's really no guarantees with him either.
No, he's even better than Chris Wood. I don't really know, but
well, I mean, yeah. Could you be better than Chris Wood? But coming back to United, I mean, it just shows you the damage that has been caused by years of mismanagement in terms of the squad, and just how long it will take to unwind some of this. It may be a 3-year process to unwind all the crappy contracts, high fees, and the knock-on effect of buying players who aren't good enough on too big a fees, but especially too big a wages, is you can't get rid of them.
Yeah. And all this is to say as well about McTominay is, I feel like sometimes, I think our fan base have been needlessly harsh with him over the past few years. Like, he has limitations, but I feel like he's never like let us down. Like, there are limitations, like I say, to his ability, to his tactical ability as well. But he's always put in a shift. He's come up with like important moments. He's never like shirked a challenge or anything. He's a great personality also on the field, and I'm sure he's a great personality in the dressing room. You can't fault him for anything apart from just his ability, and that's
his quality.
And that's obviously not anything. That's not his fault or in any way. So like, he's been the model professional, and I think I will be kind of sad to see him go, to be honest, because you want these players around your club. You want these players, and you love it when these players come through the academy and of United fans and make it and have these amazing moments. But it's just the brutal nature of football, really, that players like this have to move on if you, as a club, want to move on and up.
Well, that sounds like a good point to end. Is it Scott McTominay go or Scott McTomi-Stay? We'll find out in the next couple of weeks. Thanks, Tom. Good to speak to you again. And everyone, thanks for listening. We'll be back with a main pod in midweek and probably another one of these short ones during the week too. See you later. All right. Very good. Oh, 1 second. Let me just turn my phone off.